Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Sister Mary Clare walked the narrow streets of Boston as night fell. The rain fell in icy, fine needles, soaking her clothes and trickling down her veil. In the shadows of an alley, a faint sound caught her attention. A whimper. She approached and discovered a small baby swaddled in a sodden blanket, abandoned on the slippery cobblestones. Her heart sank. She took him in her arms, warming him against her chest. "Don't worry, my little one, you're safe now," she whispered. She ran to the convent, where a warm bath and clean clothes were prepared. That night, as she cradled the child, she promised herself she would watch over him as her own son. Weeks passed, and the baby, whom she named Thomas, grew up surrounded by love and prayers. But one day, a woman knocked on the convent door. Her eyes were filled with tears and fear. "He's my son. I didn't know what to do," she sobbed. Sister Mary Clare felt her heart sink, but before she could explain the situation, sirens wailed outside. The police had been alerted, and without listening to the nun, they arrested the mother. Sister Mary Clare found herself torn between her faith, her duty to the child, and the injustice that had just struck a desperate mother. Thomas was crying in her arms, while she wondered how an act of kindness could turn into a nightmare. The following morning, the convent was plunged into a heavy silence. Sister Mary Clare sat in the small chapel, Thomas asleep in her arms. She couldn't shake the image of the baby's mother, frozen before her eyes. How could such a simple situation have escalated into a legal drama? She remembered every detail of that night, the icy rain, the shivering baby, her protective instinct that had driven her to take him to the convent. She had acted out of compassion, out of faith, but now the police were demanding answers, suspecting she might have been complicit in child abandonment. The sound of the sirens had barely ceased when Mother Superior entered the chapel, her face etched with worry. "Mary Clare, they won't listen to anything. They say you hid the child and that you're preventing the mother from getting him back." Sister Mary Clare hugged Thomas tightly. "I was just protecting her. That baby was cold, hungry, and scared," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't do anything wrong." Meanwhile, a few streets away, the baby's mother, Elizabeth Harper, was being questioned at a police station. Her red, swollen eyes spoke of a distress that no one seemed willing to understand. She had been forced to give up her son for fear of his safety, and now, not only had her child been taken from her, but she also faced charges of abandonment and neglect. Sister Mary Clare knew she had to act quickly. The law seemed deaf to compassion. With the help of a lawyer friend of the convent, she began to gather evidence, witnesses who had seen Elizabeth panicking in the street, photos showing the baby's condition, and above all, the urgency of protecting him until justice was served. But fear was growing in her heart. What if this affair destroyed not only Elizabeth's life, but Thomas's as well? Every minute counted, and every decision could have irreversible consequences. This chapter ended on a tense note, Sister Mary Clare placing a trembling hand on Thomas's shoulder, while in the distance, the siren of a police car signaled that the nightmare was only just beginning. The following days were a whirlwind of paperwork, appointments, and tense discussions. Sister Mary Clare spent her days fighting for Thomas, while also monitoring the news, which always seemed to distort the truth. The local papers were reporting on an abandoned baby found by a nun, implying that the mother had deliberately abandoned her child. Elizabeth Harper remained at the police station, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She repeated over and over, "I didn't mean to. I just wanted him to survive." But no one seemed willing to listen. The prosecutor, a rigid and cold woman, saw in this case an opportunity to demonstrate the implacability of the law. At the convent, Sister Mary Clare was preparing her notes and documents for the upcoming hearing. She knew that the only way to save the child and the mother was to prove the truth. Elizabeth had never wanted to abandon Thomas, she had been forced by danger and despair. One afternoon, she received a call from the convent's lawyer, Rebecca Lang. "Mary Clare, listen to me carefully, the judge is strict. If we don't quickly prove that the mother is fit and sincere, Thomas could be placed in temporary foster care, and we don't know how long he would be separated from her. Sister Mary Claire felt a lump form in her throat. She remembered Thomas's small hand squeezing her finger, his complete trust in her. And now, that bond could be broken by strict rules and the incomprehension of adults unable to see the truth. Determined, she decided to go see Elizabeth at the police station. When the mother saw her enter, her eyes lit up with a mixture of relief and despair. "Sister. Thank you for being here," she sobbed. "We will fight for you, for Thomas," Mary Claire replied, her voice firm but gentle. "But you must tell me exactly what happened that night. Every detail could make a difference." Elizabeth then told her side of the story, how she had been threatened by creditors, how she had fled into the street with her baby, and how, out of fear, she had been forced to leave him with someone she didn't know. Every word made Sister Mary Claire tremble, but strengthened her resolve. This chapter concludes with a feeling of intense tension. The hearing was approaching, the pressure was mounting, and every decision made by the nun and the lawyer could determine the fate of Thomas and Elizabeth. The fight for the truth had only just begun. On the morning of the hearing, the convent seemed strangely silent. Sister Mary Claire held Thomas close, watching him play with a blanket, unaware of the torment that awaited him. She knew the legal battle would be difficult. The judge, known for his severity, allowed no room for emotion. In the courtroom, Elizabeth Harper entered, accompanied by Ms. Rebecca Lang. Her heart was pounding. She dreaded the prosecutor's accusing gaze, the coldness of the police officers, and above all, the prospect of losing Thomas forever. The judge took his seat, imposing in his black robe. "Harper v. the State, concerning the custody of the child Thomas Harper." His voice echoed through the courtroom like a death knell. The prosecutor stepped forward, presenting his argument. In his view, Elizabeth had abandoned her child and had provided no evidence of stability or security. Each word seemed like a sword piercing the mother's heart. Then, Ms. Rebecca Lang stood up. "Your Honor, we are simply asking that the facts be considered as they actually happened." She produced photographs, witness statements, and reports from the convent. Mrs. Harper acted out of fear and urgency, simply trying to protect her child. And Sister Mary Claire, who was present from the beginning, watched over Thomas like a true guardian until we could establish the truth. Sister Mary Claire was called to testify. Her trembling but determined voice described the night she found the baby, her immediate care, and the attention given to little Thomas ever since. She explained the mother's distress and how her actions were neither a crime nor negligence. A heavy silence fell as the judge asked Elizabeth to speak. She recounted her fear, her confusion, and her love for Thomas. Her eyes, shining with tears, met those of her nun protector. "All I wanted was for him to live, and to be safe," she whispered. The prosecutor tried again to object, but something in Elizabeth's sincerity and Sister Mary Claire's credibility changed the atmosphere. The judge, after a long silence, sighed deeply. It is rare that the truth presents itself with such clarity despite appearances. The child must remain with her mother. A wave of relief swept through the room. Elizabeth burst into tears and hugged Thomas tightly, while Sister Mary Claire felt a warmth of satisfaction and peace wash over her. She had done what she had to do, protect a child and restore justice. Yet, deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Society could still judge without understanding, but on that day, love and courage had triumphed. The weeks following the hearing were a mixture of relief and rebuilding for Elizabeth Harper. Thanks to the judgment, she officially regained custody of Thomas. Every morning, she woke up with a quiet gratitude towards Sister Mary Claire, who had been her rock through this ordeal. At the convent, Sister Mary Claire resumed her daily routines, but her heart remained with Thomas and his mother. She knew that the love she had given the baby had been a saving force, and she felt honored to see mother and child reunited. Elizabeth invited the nun to her home for a simple but warm dinner. "Sister Mary Claire, I can never thank you enough. Without you, Thomas might not be here anymore." Her voice trembled with emotion, while Thomas ran around the table, laughing heartily. The nun smiled gently. "Everything I did, it was out of love and faith. but I'm happy to see that you are both finally safe. In time, Elizabeth found a stable job and a comfortable apartment. Thomas grew up in a safe and loving environment, but he never forgot the nun who had protected him in his first hours of life. And for Sister Mary Clare, this experience strengthened her belief that compassion and courage could sometimes overcome injustice. One evening, as rain fell gently on Boston, Elizabeth and Thomas went to the convent to thank Sister Mary Clare one last time. The baby she had held in her arms was no longer a fragile infant, but a little boy full of life and curiosity. She took him in her arms, held him tenderly, and whispered, "Always remember, love is stronger than fear." Thomas burst out laughing and Elizabeth smiled, her eyes filled with tears of joy. That day, the convent resounded not with the pain of injustice, but with the triumph of kindness and fidelity to the human heart. And in the silence of the night, Sister Mary Clare prayed for them, knowing that sometimes an act of compassion could change the destiny of an entire life.